I'm going to start off with a question, somewhat rhetorical because I'm going to give you the answer to the question. And actually tonight is the answer to this question. Why breadcrumbs? Maybe you've asked the question, why is it called Breadcrumb Tales? So I'm going to give you 3 reasons why as a way of introduction to the event. So the first reason relates to me being laid off in December of the last year. I was a professor of counseling and psychology. I've been in higher education for 20 some years as professor and administrator. And part of my research in the field of psychology is kind of a new stream within psychology called positive psychology. It's different from pop psychology. Maybe you've heard of that. Pop psychology is more anecdotal, more about motivational speaking and in quotes. Positive psychology is actually defined as the scientific study of what makes life worth living, or the scientific study of how people flourish, or simply the science of happiness. So that's been my field the last 10 years, research. And for example, I published a few articles recently, one on resilience, so how people flourished during the pandemic, kind of one of our studies. Another article on gratitude and how the practice of gratitude boosts well-being. So not only the person giving gratitude, but also the person receiving gratitude. So we did a research project around that. Most recently, I've done something around this concept of ikigai. How many people have heard of that concept? Okay, a few. So it's a Japanese word that means reason for being. And it's been popularized by National Geographic in the last 15 years, I guess. They did a study of the regions of the world where people live the longest. They found 5. And Okinawa, Japan is one of those regions. And part of the reason for their long life is because of this concept called ikigai, or reason for being. And central to this concept is curiosity. So they wake up each morning with a sense of curiosity and their clear focus of what they're on life on planet Earth for. So when a friend asked me why I wanted to do this event after I got laid off, like what are you going to do next? He asked me, and I said, well, besides going back into higher education, which I love, the only thing I'm really curious about, the only thing that's captured my imagination right now, is doing this event called Breadcrumb Tales, where I can share some of my research and share my story, and also have other people share their stories along some similar themes. And so the first reason was to follow curiosity tonight. The second reason is really just to provide a real-time example of what it looks like to follow the breadcrumbs of life. I don't know if you've thought about, that's kind of a more recent mindset for me, maybe the last 10 years. I don't know if you've thought of life in that way, following breadcrumbs, but it's kind of a newer concept for me. But I want to give you an example of what that looks like. So that's another reason for tonight. I'm going to give you that. But also kind of define what that means. What I've come to call, I've defined it recently, is cultivating an openness to the messages of everyday events. So just being open to things that happen around you. Another way you might think of it is following your instincts or intuition, or listening to your inner voice, or letting life guide you in some way. So those are ways that you conceptualize Breadcrumb Tales. So that's the second reason for tonight. The third reason is I kind of mentioned to earlier. I want to share the science of long and meaningful life, what it looks like. And actually, science suggests that following breadcrumbs can boost your happiness, can lead to a long and meaningful life, and can potentially extend your life 7 to 10 years just by doing some of the things that I'll be talking about tonight. So who doesn't want to know about that kind of stuff? I do. I don't want to just extend my life, but I hopefully it'll be meaningful years. And this is the kind of stuff that the research is getting at. So to do this, I'm going to share part of my story. Dale mentioned it's sort of like a TED Talk and Moth. So mine is both. I'm sharing my story as a way of talking about some of the research that I've done. My story, part of the story I'm going to talk about is something that happened to me 15 years ago. Is similar to what I'm going through now. Now I'm going through this transition in my life, career transition and personal transition. So I'm going to retell the story that happened to me and how I navigated that time by following breadcrumbs. So I was working in New Jersey as vice president of academic affairs at a small private conservative religious college that helped to launch. and over 12 years. And I even stepped into the interim president role for a while. And after we hired the new president, we were off campus just getting to know each other. And we stopped at Starbucks and in between meetings, and we sat down outside. And he said to me, after some small chit chat, the tone got kind of serious, and he said to me, I know about you, David. And I don't know about you, but when I heard that in that context, kind of new boss, I'm like, oh, okay, what could this be? And I said, well, I know you know I like chai tea because I just ordered it. But other than that, I thought, well, I hope you don't know what I think you know, because that could be embarrassing for both of us. And then I also thought, well, I hope you do know what I think you know, because I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of holding secrets. And so I was able to kind of stumble through the conversation. He didn't really name the thing that he said he knew about me at that point, but the conversation continued, and I kind of knew what he knew. So 2 months later, I was in my office. He walked in and said, I need to talk to you about something. And it sounded pretty serious. And he sat down across from me and he said, I received a disturbing letter from a former disgruntled dean. He received it, and the board of trustees, 15-member board of trustees, also received this letter. I've come to call this dean Dr. Gollum. And he looked something like this. So, for reasons you'll understand as it's on the story. So, Dr. Gollum, apparently, and so we had been really good friends. He was my right-hand man. I was vice president. He was dean. And I shared a manuscript for a book that I was writing, kind of a memoir. And the memoir was just sharing about my faith and some of the challenges I was having, kind of integrating my personal life with my faith. And so apparently sometime later after he left the college, he felt the need to write a letter to the president and the board with this line in the first letter of the first line of what? There's a celibate homosexual opinion. So I thought about playing kind of dumb with the president who was sitting across from me talking about this. And I said, well, who do you think the celibate homosexual is? But considering I was the only single person in leadership, I didn't think that would go over too well. And apparently Dr. Gollum went on in the letter to say that additional measures will be taken to deal with the leader on a larger scale if whatever he was thinking would happen. So to the credit of the board and to the president, they decided to stand by me, declare this as slanderous. And but I thought about it for a couple of weeks, and I wasn't really comfortable at that point in my life being exposed for some of the personal things in my life. So, and it wasn't probably good for the college either. So I decided to resign and took it as an inciting incident. So an event in my life that called me out of something to something greater, hopefully. So I took that time to move from New Jersey back to Ohio, back here where my friends and family are. And took it to time to pursue other interests, writing, traveling, and was able to go around the world, and then also do some filmmaking. And I also wanted to start trying to resolve my sexual orientation with my faith. And so after a couple of years of that, I was essentially unemployed. I wasn't making much progress in terms of dating men in this area. And so I just wasn't in a good space. And I actually remember coming to a crisis point. I was living in an apartment with a friend, and I started having flashbacks to what happened in New Jersey that kind of wake me up in the middle of the night. And I got up one night and looked in the mirror and just said to myself, I don't think I'm going to make it. I don't think I'm going to make it through the night. And so I called a friend and said, I kind of stay with me for a couple of days just to kind of get through this crisis. And during that time, even though I'm a licensed counselor and I was seeing a therapist and on medication for depression at the time, the thing that stood out to me that kind of got me through that was my brother, who was an ex-Navy SEAL, had gotten divorced and just went through a really critical crisis time in his life. And he said one thing that helped him was he just had a to-do list. And he nailed it to his wall, and every morning or every night he'd mark off the things that he accomplished. And so it was a sense of accomplishment for him to just get that done. So with that in mind, and also this piece of research I was approaching age 46, and I don't know if you've seen this research, but apparently we get happier as we get older, which is good news. So, and the turning point is around 46. So I was approaching my 46th birthday, turned 46 in January. And I decided to create a project out of this and drafted. I actually had my journal that I wrote. I had a vision journal at the time, writing my dreams and ideas for my life up to this, through the rest of my life. And then I consolidated it to three themes, three intentions that I wanted to pursue that year. So I called it Project 46, and I wanted to find love in life, peace with God, and a job I like. And so that actually structures the evening. You'll hear stories around those three themes from the live storytellers. And you also hear some recorded recordings from my time 11 years ago during my Project 46. So I was like an investigative reporter who was on this quest to find out how people lived happy lives. And I was following the breadcrumbs, and people that I met along the way, I get my recorder and record a conversation with them. I captured that. So you'll hear from some of those stories as well. We'll hear from Fran, who's a laughter yoga leader. You'll hear from Ruth, who's a Kmart cashier. People I met along the way. You'll hear from a dude named Jesse. And you'll hear from a girl who couldn't laugh. So I actually met this girl through a friend of mine who's here tonight. Her daughter, during my quest to get my laugh back during my 46th year, I met this girl who didn't know how to laugh early in life, and she had to kind of learn how to laugh. So I'm going to share a little bit of a sample of audio from that. And then you'll hear a lot of these stories throughout my story tonight, in between some of these other storytellers. So this is the first one, the girl who couldn't laugh.
I just remember I couldn't laugh.
This is the story of a girl who couldn't laugh.
Had to learn how to laugh, right?
I don't know. I just picked up a laugh, and I don't know.
And how I came to know her.
Remember when we were in the car and we'd all of us would be laughing at the same time, and you'd copy off of us and try to figure out which one, I guess, you like the best.
During that time, this theme of love and life for me at that time, 46, I was looking for a partner in life. And I actually, this is the actual journal that I put together 12 years ago, the vision journal. I put all my goals down and then cut out images like a vision board to represent what I was looking for. And so this is the actual images I cut out. Looking for a partner. I call it partner in crime. Partner in life, somebody to go on adventures with, to care about, to love. And that was kind of the center part of that goal for me, love and laugh. But I was also kind of moving back from New Jersey and kind of not being settled in my community. I also wanted to broaden it to just rebuild my tribe. And so there's a concept in Okinawa called moai, or moi. And it has to do with this idea of finding your tribe. So another practice they have in Okinawa that also contributes to their long life is they have these moais, a group of lifelong friends, social support group. So the practices, from what I've heard, is like arranged marriages. They have this for kids. So families get together when the kids are young, and they partner them up with other kids. And so the idea is that they stay together throughout life, through financial hardship, relationships, all that. And it's, part of the structure of their culture and contributes to their long life, long and meaningful life. So that's what I was looking for, to reestablish myself in Cincinnati, have those bonds, those close connections. I come across this interesting research. Maybe you've seen this. The longest study on happiness is from Harvard. It's a study of 724 men over 80 years. Was one of the guys that they looked at originally. Now they've expanded to their family and their wives and their kids. But they looked at men at Harvard and also men in inner city, in the area. And they found that one thing they kind of concluded from the study, one of the primary things, was the clearest message is that good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. They also kind of go on to say that close relationships, more than money or fame or would keep people happy throughout their lives. And in social ties, delay mental and physical decline and are better predictors of long, happy lives than social class, IQ, or even genes. Because they were looking at both people from harder and also inner city, so they were compared. So out of 10,000 pages of research, they conclude that good relationships are what make us happy. So that was what I was looking for, just close connections. And one of the ways I did that during my Project 46 quest to eat my laugh back was to meet up with these guys. We called it Dudes Night. So every Friday, we'd get together for a meal at a friend's house. We'd drink a few beers and smoke cigars and sit around and have a discussion. And each person in the group, we kind of rotate who brought the topic for discussion that week. And I said, I want to bring it this week, and asked if I could record their conversation. And so this is a clip from that actual Dudes thing.
So that's been a good 5-6 months for the most part, just kind of looking at those intentions and being happier with a lot of stuff. Until a couple weeks ago, I just had kind of a dark turn, not seeing as much progress in the job search as I wanted that was getting to me, and not having my own place. And then, and it actually came to a head. It got really bad after last Thursday. Stress was just overwhelming, and I could physically feel the pressure building up in my chest. But then over the weekend, I started to remember my intentions, and the three intentions that I talked about, just the mentality of the year that I wanted to adopt, of appreciating life. And so I stopped focusing on what I didn't have and started to think about, okay, the last few weeks, what have I missed because I've been so focused on these things that I don't have? And started to think back on maybe the messages that life was trying to tell me or share with me. And so I thought, I want to just record. So the last couple of days I've been kind of retracing some steps and recording conversations with people. And my friend's daughter, Sandy, said when she was younger, she had to learn how to laugh. She didn't know how to laugh. And at some point she had to find her own laugh. Like finding your voice, like she didn't know, so I recorded a conversation with her.
I don't know, John and Mom would be laughing, and I would just think of their laughs and copy theirs.
Can you give us some examples?
Actually, I can't do it anymore. I can't.
We stop.
All right, so let's get right into it. Act 2, Intention 2, Peace with God. So I grew up in a God-believing home, but I got more interested in faith when I went to college. My increased interest in spirituality really had to do with trying to find a greater sense of purpose and meaning in life, but it also had to do with trying to resolve my sexual orientation. So, or to fix it, I guess, or to not be gay at the time. So it was kind of a hard to reconcile a faith and my sexuality at the time. So during my Project 46, I didn't expect to kind of resolve all my theological questions. I was actually in seminary for 6 years as well. So I had lots of theological questions that I didn't think would be resolved in a year. But I was hoping for a greater sense of self-acceptance in many ways, of just more compassion for myself than who I was, maybe even gratitude for how I was created. And that was my focus during that year. So, I was, one thing that was kind of consistent for me during this time, even though, I had faith that was kind of rocky, was this idea of transcendence. And so by transcendence, I mean an experience of or connection to something greater than myself. So for me, I did have an experience in my faith, but something that's sustaining me throughout my life is really outdoor nature and outdoor adventure. So that's kind of what's sustaining me. It's just doing walks in nature and enjoying the awe and wonder of the world around me. That's kind of what transcendence has been for me. For you, others it might be having worship service at church, or maybe a worship service at a professional ball game. You know, have experience a sports team that you like, and being there with other people that you love and care for, and you're kind of caught up in the experience, or going to a Stevie Nicks concert, Fleetwood Mac, and just being caught up in the euphoria of the music and the people around you. Those are transcendent experiences as well. So believe it or not, whether you're religious or not, whether you're atheist, agnostic, or devout Buddhist, there is a science of spirituality. Neuroscientists have discovered that our brains are activated in a certain way. They come alive. They grow stronger through transcendent experiences. Dr. Lisa Miller from Columbia University is kind of the founding researcher in this area. And she says that humans have an innate capacity for spirituality, and that our brains, when awakened by transcendent experiences, become more resilient and robust, and our lives more meaningful and content. And if you read her book or listen to her talk, she's really echoing what I'm talking about in terms of Breadcrumb Tales. I define it as cultivating an openness to the messages of everyday events. She talks about it as letting life guide you, having a conversation with life. That's very much kind of a door to having these transcendent experiences. She also says, interestingly, oftentimes what triggers or deepens our sense of transcendent awareness, our connection to something greater and beyond us, is suffering, is depression, is struggle, frustration. If we let it, if we treat those things as imitations to something greater, they can be triggers to these transcendent experiences.
And this has been an important time, you know. I think something I don't always appreciate, but I see the benefits of it. And a question related to, I woke up on Sunday morning and was watching this show called Sunday Morning, and they had some guy who was in prison and got out, became a lawyer, and part of the story was this quote. He said, the darkness in life serves a purpose, to show us redemption. And I just wanted to put that out there.
Must have been 6 years old.
This is Jesse.
And I remember me and my dad walking out to the grill to cook up some steaks, and I said, the goddamn Indians lost. And he stopped and he turned around and he said, I don't want you talking that way in front of me. Someday I'm going to be your friend and your dad, but right now I'm your dad. I don't want you talking that way in front of me. He always had this thing about woodpile talk. You have woodpile talk with your friends, but when you're around adults, you know, you cut that all off. And there was a time 2 or 3 years ago where I can remember just thinking to myself, I don't think it's ever going to be that way. I think he's always going to just be my dad. And I said that with a certain sadness. There was a sadness involved with that, because it was always kind of like, you know, there was a hierarchy order. You know, here's your dad, and here are the kids, and not to say that, you know, of course I always enjoyed his company, but it was more as a fatherly figure,
authority, whatever.
Authority, yeah. And I can remember thinking, you know, it's just something that I have to get used to. You know, but really wishing that, you know, I just wish that, I mean, I never knew how to really bring it up to him, but it was like, you know, my buddies, they take an interest in me, and I take an interest in them, and I just always feel like, you know, I take an interest in you and what's happening, but, you know, it doesn't seem like that interest
Reciprocated.
Yeah, and so that was always hard for me, and I can remember every now and then when I felt fearless trying to bring it up, but it just was something that he could never see. And everything that's happened this past year with their divorce, you know, the beauty of it is that I have watched my father, you know, break.
The darkness in life serves a purpose to show us redemption. This had become another breadcrumb theme in my Project 46 that I wanted to explore with others. It also reminded me of what Dr. Lisa Miller talked about, and what triggers transcendent awareness oftentimes is the suffering, is the darkness, those dark spots in our life. So I brought this conversation back to this woman I met at Kmart. So I was stuck in a long line at Kmart, and I looked at only one lane open, 10 people back, and the cashier was an elderly woman who I got to know eventually. But I would just kind of watch her, was observing her, and just kind of drawn to her a little bit because she took so much time with each person, just care for each person she was helping. And as it got closer to me, she treated me the same, just seemed to love me as a customer. And so I went back the next day and asked the manager if I could speak to her. I gave her my card, and the manager gave Ruth my card. And I asked her to go out to coffee. And so I asked if I could record a conversation that I was having with her, and just about her life. And so part of that conversation, she shared that she was 88 years old and working at Kmart. And I kind of thought initially that maybe she needed help. So that's why she's working at Kmart at 80 years old, and maybe I could do something for her. And so that's what drew me to her. But I also was kind of curious about her life and some of the dark spots in her life. And so I asked her about that, any regrets that she might have.
Of course, everybody does. I wish I had made my Afghans. I wish I had put myself on a schedule, and I wish I had started to write. I wanted to write a book or two, and I was always going to do it later. Later came awful fast. Yeah, I feel as though I've wasted some time. I'd like 20 more years and new legs. And boy, I would make a big difference.
Ruth had become a key character in my Project 46, and so you hear more from her later on. But I also, as I followed Breadcrumbs, I met all these different interesting characters. I mentioned a woman named Fran, who's a laughter yoga leader. So as I was kind of following the Breadcrumbs, my perspective was shifting a little bit. I started to be more grateful for the things I had and kind of let go of the things I didn't have. And that brought me to people like Fran. So I had just come back from climbing to the base camp of Everest. And so I had a Nepal Kathmandu shirt on. And she, apparently, we were just in Caribou Coffee, which is right up the street here for a while. And she saw my shirt, said she had, her son was over there in Nepal, and 2 daughters were going over there, so she just had to meet me. And so I found out she was a laughter yoga leader, and I thought she's important for my quest to get my laugh back. So we started a conversation, and then I asked her about how she helps people laugh.
We prefer to call it laughter therapy, or love to laugh is the kind of name I've got on my brochure. So,
Laughter lessons or something.
Or just laughing uncontrollably for no reason. And it's really about childlike playfulness and joy.
So you just bring in games to help people warm up to.
No, we don't bring in games. Well, I'll explain. Okay. What we start with is like neck rotations, little neck rolls, arm circles, just loosening up a little bit, if you can. If nobody wants to, if they don't want to do that, you don't have to.
So it's just, they participate as they want to.
As you want to. And if you're in a wheelchair, that's fine. Do whatever you can. And if you want to be more vigorous, you can. If you don't, that's fine too. Just something to loosen up the muscles. And then we do a little bit of gentle breathing. What I usually start out with, we form a sort of very loose circle. And I will start off by saying, okay, just follow me. And we go ho, 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 ho. And then we go to ha, 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 ha. Then we really mix it up and go ho, ho, ha, ha, ha. So we're all walking around the room and we're getting louder and louder and go ho, ho, ha, ha. You know, it's just crazy. And people are in varying stages of like, are you serious? I'm supposed to do this too. Just fully involved, you know. But most people jump in and get involved pretty quickly.
And what was your laugh like?
She'd go.
But she did it really loud, and she would really force it out. Try to do it, honey. Do it, please.
What is this gonna accomplish?
Seriously, it's a story. It'd be funny.
It's a unique story.
Go ahead. Do it. Just do it one time.
I've got to think about it.
Remember how you just forced it
I've got to think about it.
Do it.
I've got to think.
So as I continue to follow the breadcrumbs, I kept going back to my conversation and meeting with Ruth. So there's something about her that drew me to her. I said that I thought maybe she needed my help financially in some way, or there's some other way because she was working at Kmart late in life. But I found out pretty early on that she was better off than I was in that respect. She loved life. She loved people. She just liked to work. And so that's why she was working there. She liked to be out. So I was listening for other things, maybe for a reason for meeting in this breadcrumb kind of way. And I asked her about kind of secrets in her life and other things. So I'm going to play another clip from that.
I don't know. If I have a secret, I don't know what it is.
Even though Ruth didn't think she had secrets,
Very happy child.
I was sure she did.
But I do feel that some of the maybe unhappy people who come to my counter, I can tell when they walk up, and it's my challenge to make them smile. And I almost always do.
How do you do that?
I discovered her secret.
I love them because they're a human being, and I treat them importantly. So,
She loved people.
I mean, they're God's child, and they don't get that kind of treatment in their life.
How do you show that to them?
I look them in the eye, I touch them, smile a lot, ask them questions. What you do to be friendly.
But I was also listening for a deeper purpose to our meeting. I thought at first perhaps Ruth needed my help, but I discovered fairly quickly that she was better off than I was in many respects.
So I'll show you how. But I'm left-handed. But you're not left-handed, are you? Do you have any people in your family? Oh, but no men.
My brother is left-handed. And my nephew and my niece are left-handed.
Well, the
And then
men look under Dr. Donald Joy.
Yes, he's a friend of mine.
How interesting. I've told so many people about him. I don't know him.
Oh.
I just can't believe this.
Would you like me to ask him?
Yes. Oh, he'd probably be bored with me, but I'd be thrilled to death. I'm so glad I met you. Well, you're very nice.
So I started to see why I was supposed to meet Ruth by following the breadcrumbs to have a connection with Dr. Joy, who was an old seminary professor of mine. Somebody who was like a surrogate father, mentor during my 6 years in seminary. I also needed to contact him for my sake, just to kind of explore these themes of darkness and laughter and joy. I ended up bringing Ruth and my mom down to see Dr. Joy sometime later. But before that, I was able to reconnect with him myself. I found out that he was still in seminary, enrolled in Kentucky where I went to seminary. So my next phase of this journey, Project 46, was to reconnect with him. Which leads us to Act 3, Intention, a job I like. So a job I like was always more than just finding a job, because I was unemployed during this phase of my life 11 years ago. It was to really live in my ikigai, my calling, to wake up every morning with a sense of purpose, which was more than just finding a job or something to do. And actually, this concept of ikigai really has stayed with me for a long time, and it's become part of my research. So I got a grant several years ago to do some research around this concept of ikigai. So what I found, actually, one way of looking at ikigai is looking at what you love, what you're good at, and what your needs are, or what the needs of the world are. And these intersecting circles You can identify as yourself, kind of the center of your reason for being. So I did this research and took 50 people, different groups, small groups, through this 7-week experience at pre and post test, and found out that by focusing on their Ikigai this way, that they increased connectedness, significant increases in connectedness, health, happiness, meaning, and satisfaction in life. And so that's kind of been my focus the last several years for research. So my story kind of came back to Dr. Joy, as I mentioned, as I kind of followed the breadcrumbs. And as I mentioned, he was still in Wilbur, Kentucky. He had just turned 84. So I treated him to a birthday lunch in a local cafe. And then afterwards, I asked if I could record a conversation with him about some of these themes I was learning about. So we sat in my car after dinner and recorded this conversation. You've always seemed to be somebody who really enjoys life. And since your name is also Dr. Joy, you got to know something about a happy life.
Well, I can speak for Robbie and me. Robbie and I are both writing now impact points in our lives to turn over to our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And we've observed a pattern in both of us writing documents. A pattern in both of them is that whenever things seem to be the worst, that things were not turning out the way they were supposed to be, that what we did was we just kept on keeping on and being faithful to what we knew to do, having second thoughts and questions about whether or not we had made the right choices. And in every case, our greatest and richest experiences have been those in which we had great disappointments that had to be integrated and brought forward. And I find myself telling folks and observing it in their lives that all of your life experience, whatever it is going to be integrated and be shown of value, no matter how tragic it was, shown of value in the person that you're becoming. And if people are going to be destroyed by something or commit suicide over it, that's a deep regret, because they likely could have incorporated it and risen as unparalleled authorities on the very thing that they struggled with. I think that's the pattern I see going on around, and it sure has been in ours.
So yeah, a lot of the wisdom for me, and just the idea of integrating, being able to integrate the very thing that we struggle with and rising above as authorities and the very thing that could have taken us down. Reminded me of a couple of themes that I was picking up from Dr. Lisa Miller, who said, oftentimes what triggers transcendent awareness are the struggles in life, the darkness, the depression. And from the quote that I brought to the dudes, the darkness in life serves a purpose to bring about redemption. And so I brought this back to the dudes, and you'll hear the conclusion to Jesse's story about his father and what that did to him.
For the first time ever in my life, my dad is reaching out and taking interest, not just in me, but really in himself, we'll say, because he's pursuing these things that involve life, friendships, spiritual journey, things outside of himself that I've never seen before. I've never seen come out of him. And so, I mean, even just the other day, it's like we're talking on the phone, and he's talking about some account that he thinks he's going to lose, and was kind of upset about that. And then he called me back about 5 minutes later after we got off the phone, and he said, "Hey, just want to let you know I just got an email from that guy, and he said he still wants to buy from us, and he's going to call me on Monday." I was like, hell yeah. And then I got off the phone with him only to realize that it's like, that's what I want reciprocated my whole life. It's like, let's celebrate in each other and what's happening. And to me, that's what a friendship is. And to me, that would have not been possible had this whole darkness, this split happened. So that's kind of what it made me think about.
It's taken some brokenness to, and he said it himself. What was his quote to Nick? When he,
What was what was it? A man
the only way a man's heart can be open
truly open is to be by truly broken.
by being broken.
I just remember I couldn't laugh.
So 3 months after meeting the girl who couldn't laugh and following the breadcrumbs back to my old mentor, Dr. Joy, this is what I've culled from the conversations.
Yeah, there are lots of lessons from my Project 46. The core of it was really about laughter. And how I kind of regained that in my quest to laugh back. I learned that to forget how to laugh, if you lose your laugh, you can get it back. Part of getting your laugh back might mean through your safety until you make it. And sometimes, if you hold on long enough, there may be a time when you forget times when you couldn't laugh, which was my case. But when I was sharing the story with Dave and others, it's like, well, so what happened with those 3 intentions after that year? Where were you in the 46 year? Well, actually, I had this book of my vision and my dreams, and I set it aside partway through the year. I didn't even look at it anymore because my goal actually became just shifting my perspective in life. Regardless of my goals or accomplishments, I kind of adopted this attitude of gratitude, and that's what shifted my whole outlook on things. But and then I picked my journal up later on, maybe 2 years later, and looked back and I'm like, oh, this is interesting what happened. So in 2011, I created Project 46 with these 3 themes. And so I'm going to share with you some additional research that's come up since then. But in terms of my love and life, so in 2012, I met a man, and he's here tonight. Some of you met him, know him. His name is Ty, and he's brought tremendous love into my life. And so just, I don't want to embarrass him, but I want to thank him for the love he's brought in my life. And the adventure. We've been on adventures all over the world, very much like the pictures that I envisioned in my journal. So, but as I said, a lot of that love in life was also about finding a tribe. And so that continues to grow. Many of you from different things that I enjoy in life are here tonight, and I'm thankful for that. Regarding my job to like, so I started working as a therapist soon after that, and then I got my true level was higher education, so I got a job back in higher education that next year. And I was in that for 10 years, which I just got laid off from the job. But I was, thriving in that environment. Regarding my peace with God, as I mentioned, that was really about kind of finding a sense of eternal peace with who I was, that sexual orientation, which continues to evolve. And even to tonight, I mentioned this as a rite of passage for me. It's my first public statement of saying that I'm gay in this format. So it's taken a while, but I'm kind of on that journey. And so, but as I stepped back from all of this and looked at my project from 11 years ago and those things that I learned, I have a new epiphany, as I followed the breadcrumbs. So it relates to some research that was done by Emily Esfahani-Smith in 2017. She found 4 pillars. After 5 years of research she did through faith traditions, philosophical traditions, and psychological research, she came up with these 4 pillars of meaning, where people find meaning in life. Belonging, transcendence, and purpose. So I don't know if I just thought of this recently. So in 2011, I came up with love and life, peace with God, and a job to like. And so 6 years later, had research that for me affirmed what I was saying. Her love and life for me was for her belonging. Peace with God, transcendence, a job I like, purpose. So, again, another reason is kind of an example of how to follow breadcrumb and what it can mean for you. It's affirmed by research in many ways, for me in my case. But there's a fourth pillar that I did mention that she found. Any guesses what that is? Storytelling. So I was going through my journal from 12 years ago. I found this. It's an image of, and I wanted to do storytelling games. And so it was something that came to be that I didn't even think was part of my dreams. So again, following breadcrumbs can lead us in many different ways and is affirmed also by research. So it comes down to this really. I just wanted to hope you're a little more open to the possibility of following breadcrumbs in your life. And that as you do, that you see some of the dark spots as opportunities for redemption. If you treat them as invitations to have a conversation to something greater. And that those experiences will live to a longer, healthier, and happier life. So thank you so much for listening.